This is Sniz with Bloodbane, World 11, Lord of Ultima. In this video I'm going to be covering some basic information about military structures, multiple cities put together as a single military cluster. I'm going to try to keep this under one 10-minute video, so here I go. Basically, in this, I'm going to be covering a couple of different resource city types. The first is a resource city. The keys to a resource city is that it is not castled. It produces resources only, and I'll be using that little green R in later illustrations. I recommend that they be placed on water tiles. That's primarily for gold production. That it produces balanced resources. I'm not a big fan of iron cities and wood cities. I do have some cities more heavily skewed to some resources than the other, but there's natural storage in those town halls and warehouses. It's also important for a fairly balanced distribution method. As far as walls and towers, I kind of approach that situationally for non-castled res cities. Depending on the likelihood of some possible plunders coming in, you may want to upgrade your walls and towers to increase the effectiveness of support troops you might send there if there is an inbound attack. Not a huge priority, but possibly something you want to invest a little bit into at some stage, especially if you're likely to be plundered or start getting plundered. And I strongly recommend your resource cities have sufficient storage and carts. I typically go with at least one warehouse in addition to the town hall, sometimes a second warehouse, and I also typically on a watered city I'll have 6 harbors anyway, and I'll normally have at least 3 markets in addition to that. In a non-watered city I'll have at least 4 markets and sometimes 1 more in each type of city. That is pretty critical because once your city caps out, you start doing nothing but sending resources, sometimes over long distances. If you don't need those resources locally, you can start getting into carrying capacity clusters. So anyway, that's it for resource cities. For support cities, this is important. There seems to be some misunderstanding about what I mean when I'm talking to some people about this, but a support city is a full military city. It's nothing but barracks and unit production. It is there, and food. It is there to produce defensive military units. It's important to understand that certain unit types have stronger defensive values, others have stronger offensive values. You do not want to really use offensive units to defend and vice versa if you can help it. So the idea of a support city is that it caps out. It produces thousands and thousands of, probably at the end of the day, 20 to 30,000, maybe even 40,000 units that are for defense. Those are, you do cap at some point without castling. There may come a point down the road that you do castle for those additional troops, but at this stage, a handful of support cities producing those defensive units that can then be sent to any city in the cluster or split among multiple cities in the cluster is a very powerful move without exposing that city to possible conquest. The unit types that I favor at the moment are Rangers, Guardians, and Ballistas. Each have their values. I don't have time to cover those in this video. The third type of city is the actual castled city. This is castled. It is the only city in the cluster that's castled. It produces offensive military units only. This is one of the key mistakes I see our enemies and others making, and some of our members making, is that they're trying to produce defensive troops in the castle. The castle is a tool. The tool is used to attack, at least at this stage. I'm not saying this is necessarily the case for long term, but at this stage, I look at those castles as something that you expose to attack, and its use is to attack offensively. It is defended by the local support cities, so you want to use it to produce the maximum number of offensive units possible to have the maximum effect when you do attack. If you're going to have something exposed as a target, you might as well get the most bang for the buck. The one thing your castle can do that your support cities can't do is attack. So you want to use it to get the fullest out of that capability by producing the largest number of offensive units. And at this stage, I strongly recommend that they be placed on non-water tiles only. I have built 0 water castles. I did conquer one that I may or may not come to regret, but it was already a castle on a waterway that was close to one of my clusters that I decided I wanted to go ahead and take because I didn't have a castle there yet. So I'm not sure about that one, but I strongly recommend not building any water tile castles, and at present I'm not even conquering water tile castles, I'm just destroying them. My recommended units right now, I'm fairly heavily favor Berserkers, Warlocks, Mages, and Catapults. Each have their own advantages and uses. Not going to cover those necessarily here, except to mention that Berserkers, Warlocks are and the first three are basically about clearing troops out. Catapults are about destroying buildings, bringing city strength down, which is a huge, very important component of our strategies. Will be revolving around that attack method. So. As far as how to structure a cluster, now there's a military complex at play here. I think we should be focused right now on putting one on every shrine, at least one player with one strong military complex around each shrine on both continents, and actually now a couple on 21. The pyramid, you may have more cities in this, but I think a reasonable pyramid structure is that you start with your 4 resource cities. Typically the first built, they produce the resources that first continue to build themselves, later support those military structures. That is followed by support cities. I recommend at least 2 to 3 support cities, or 2 to 3 I would say at this stage, per castle. So you have 2 to 3 support cities that produce nothing but defensive military units that can be shifted around to defend whatever's being attacked, most likely the castle. And then finally you have the castle itself that is there to attack. So basically you use the resource cities to feed the resources into the places they're needed and or out of the area if they're not needed at that time. The support typically will go in to defend the castle, and the castle sends offensive troops out to attack. So this basically provides a number of defensive options. When attacks come into the castle, you simply use the support cities, consolidate all those support troops into a single location, and defend the castle with the support troops from the support cities. If they decide to attack one of the support cities, the home troops stay there, support troops come in from the other 2 cities. If they decide to attack a resource city, you can shift all the support troops right to that resource city and do the same thing and make that an extremely expensive plunder attempt. Hopefully they won't be doing much of that. Now, when we're on, I'm going to be doing some stuff on offensive late coordination later, but a much stronger attack is to not attack one target, but attack multiple targets with false attacks, etc. If an enemy were to do that to us, the same support structure provides still the same number of options. It just starts to split our defenses, which is the strength of that attack strategy. So in this case, if the 2 support cities were attacked, both of them, they would each keep their home troops at home, and the 3rd unattacked support city would split their resources the other way, if this was a timed, coordinated, dueled attack. So anyway, I'll be covering a lot of that in the near future, but the idea here is that you have those support troops that are on a non-attackable, or at least beyond plunder, location, and you have your castle remaining in an offensive mode. Short of an all-out, all-in type defense, there is no reason to use those troops for anything other than to continue to attack. This structure allows you to defend yourself while you continue your offensive maneuvers. So, as far as, oops, I went one too far forward, but I double-clicked there. But basically, the idea with this frame was that even though those support cities are support cities today, in the future there may be value in having 2 castles and locations. We may end up having a defensive castle where we take advantage of the ability to produce many more troops in a castled city, but still focus those on defense. I don't recommend that at this stage, but the main point I wanted to make is that a support city today, a full military city that just isn't castled yet, can always be castled later. Once it is castled, it cannot be uncastled, and for that reason I strongly favor, for now, building 1 castle supported by 2 to 3 support cities, supported by 4 or more resource cities, because at this stage we don't have a need for larger defense or attack on our home continents than that. That should be sufficient for anything we'll encounter anytime in the near future, and we can always do more later. That's it for this video. Hope it helped. I'll be working on some more today, most likely.